What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Millennials. Today, I have Mike Chambers on the podcast, CEO of SMASHD, formerly Mixoloshe. If you haven't seen the viral campaign, you probably were sleeping under a rock. But we're going to talk about how this viral social campaign happened, the behind the scenes, what happened. But I want to first ask Mike how he got into marketing, and then we'll talk all about this campaign.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thanks so much for having me, Daniel. And it's just so funny to hear you. The reason why we ended up rebranding SMASHD from Mixoloshe is because, just like as we saw, it was so hard to pronounce. I noticed you called it Mixoloshe. It was actually meant to be Mixoloshe. So anyhow, we can talk more about that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, I think my journey into marketing was really just largely out of necessity. I've been an entrepreneur pretty much my entire professional life, and starting different businesses previously in the tech space, and then now in the CPG space. And I'm also sort of have a background in production. So I've created a television show, which I sold and was the host of for many years. And it was sort of the marrying of like me wanting to create products that were interesting to people with, the need to come up with stories for how to bring them to life. So it was definitely not formally trained as a marketer. Went to school I was actually a political science major in school. But it was really just, out of necessity for trying to bring some of my businesses to life.
It's always the best marriages of past experience. I think marketing is a skill that is learned. So it's always the mixture of what you did in the past versus how you can bring that into marketing. So I think it's pretty cool. I want to go into you describing what the campaign was first. So for people to know what the campaign was, and then we'll go into how you thought about it and all that good stuff.
Totally. I joined Mixoloshe, which was a non-alcoholic cocktail company that was co-founded by Christina Roth, who is a successful entrepreneur, and Zayn Malik, the One Direction boy band, singer. I joined as a fractional CMO last December, shortly after the partnership with Zayn was announced. And one of the things that became pretty apparent early on was just the struggles that the company was having with the name. So the name was, like I said, Mixoloshe. It was meant to be a play on mixology, which is the art of making cocktails. And it was fun for those who got it, but it was really hard for people to pronounce, as we saw at the top of the call or the podcast here. And also, it's gendered. So what was interesting is we were hearing from consumers that, women who would buy our product, but their husbands would love it, but their husbands would never buy it because they didn't want to be, caught holding a can that said Mixoloshe on it for whatever reason. We had some struggles with the name, but we weren't really fully committed to a rebrand right off the top because, we had all this inventory. You go through this, it's a little bit different of rebranding a CPG brand versus rebranding a tech or an app or something, a consumer app. Because you've got inventory, you've got lead times for all the stuff with retail partners. So it's far more involved. So we had been discussing the need for it, but didn't really have a logical on-ramp. Simultaneously, Nicole came on board as an intern last fall, and we had been sort of testing into different content to see if we could get it to go viral. And we'd been primarily doing that on the main brand page, but we had been sort of flirting with this idea of these new creator accounts that were sort of tied to the brand loosely, but not completely tied to the brand, which I think is a really interesting model. So long story short, we had tested a few ideas, not with the intention of leveraging them for the rebrand, but with the intention of just trying to figure out a really fun theme for a page that could convert on organic, because I'm a very big believer in the power of organic right now, in particular with the way the algorithms are changing, and with the changes to privacy, laws over the years, and the sort of decline that we've seen in paid performance. The idea for this campaign to smash cans really came kind of a couple different areas. But one, we had a lot of inventory that was set to expire and we needed to do something with it. So that was the first thing. We had to come up with an idea for what we were going to do with this inventory. And the second thing was I had seen this account called Monkey Marketing. And basically it was this kid who was trying to prove to his professor that a picture of a monkey was more effective than his professor's marketing course. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting construct. The problem with it was like he wasn't really marketing anything. He was just posting the same picture of a monkey every day. And it was effective, and like, people were laughing about it. So I thought like there was something really interesting with that format. Nicole was obviously a total rock star, and we had all this inventory, and the idea for smashing a can just came out of, nowhere really. It was just one day I was on the phone with Nicole and I was like, look, go in your backyard with a baseball bat and a can of our soon to be expired product and just smash it, put this overlay on it, and let's see what happens. So the first day she goes in the backyard and she smashes a can and it gets maybe like 1,000 views or something like that. And we're like, all right. Second day, she goes in the backyard with a baseball bat, smashes the can, doesn't get any traction. Third day, she goes in the backyard, smashes a can, and it gets 30 million views. And the overlay on these videos was X days remaining to prove to my boss, I was the boss, that smashing this can was more effective than his entire marketing strategy. And we set up this whole sort of thing. And so when that first video went really viral, we saw it as an opportunity. We kind of all came together and said, look, like there's a real opportunity here to ride this. We've got like 57 days remaining of this campaign, and we could do something really special with this. So we started the storyline out, what the remainder of the campaign would look like. And what we found, like from those first few posts, where people were really interested in this concept of like an intern challenging her boss, and the boss quickly became a villain. So we really knew that there was this interesting storyline there that we could kind of pull on, separate from just her smashing the can, but like this dynamic between Nicole and her boss. And so we really started to introduce that to the story, creating content that sort of highlighted the relationship between Nicole and her boss and the challenges that he was setting forth. And then we were, really transparent. There was this sort of like build in public element to it where we were really transparent about the impact that the can smashing in the campaign was having on the business. Long story short, in 60 days, we were able to build a community of over 500,000 followers. We had almost 200 million views on the content during that time. Around, I believe it was like 70,000 email signups, and I believe the total sales increase was around 9x during that period of the campaign. So it really, it really transformed our business overnight. I left out one key element there. Right at the beginning, when we realized that we had this traction, that was when we decided to like introduce the rebrand. And that was going to be a major part of this whole campaign. So we sort of teased that if she was successful in hitting this goal, we would allow her and her community to rebrand the company. And so she was successful. We hit the goal. We rebranded the company from Mixoloshe to SMASHD with this epic, explosion video. We blew up like a whole pallet of cans in Vegas. It was super fun. Basically a month and a half later, and we're shipping our SMASHD products now as we speak to customers, and in the process of getting it on shelves nationwide. So it's been a heck of a ride.
It's one of the craziest stories ever, but I think one thing that's really cool and funny about it is the account was named the best marketing strategy ever, which is pretty funny and a play on, I think, people, if you go look at that account, Nicole does some crazy and cool stuff on it. Since you saw the smashing of the can started working, how did you start planning each video? What was like the planning process like?
It's a great question. So there's a couple layers to it. One, every time we would post a video, we would pin a comment at the top and we would say, how should we smash the can next? So we were soliciting a lot of insights and feedback from the community for inspiration. And whenever we would do someone's like proposed smash, it would just, the community would go crazy. They would, they would get really excited. So a lot of the like ideas did come directly from the community. And then it was myself, Nicole, and another colleague, Eli, who were just coming together every day and coming up with a plan for the creative. For the first like 20 days of the campaign, Nicole was filming most of this herself with her roommate in Texas. And then as the traction really started to take off, we started to, ramp up the production value a little bit. As you can see, if you go back from the very beginning, super simple, her in the back of her, backyard smashing a can. And then towards the end, she's smashing cans with Gary Vee in New York City and, blowing up cars in Vegas and running over cans with tanks and stuff like that. So it really started to ramp up a little bit. But what's interesting about that, Daniel, is like, there really wasn't a correlation between increased production value and more views. In fact, if you actually go back and look, like the content that performed the best was the lower production content, like right from the very beginning, which I think is kind of interesting. Like there's really not, you don't need to have big budgets in order to get virality, which is cool.
I think the key to the virality is what you said at the beginning of this show is having a story in place, you, the villain, having a concept in place, and then also making it a series so people can go back and say, what happened on day 60? What happened on day 59? So I think that also allows people to consume multiple TikToks or IG Reels, anything a couple times. So I think those are the two things that I think. But I want to know what other things you were thinking about that led to increased virality and decreased. What are some of those learnings what are some things that actually made it go viral versus not go viral?
Yeah, I mean, I think like we've really broken this down because obviously it's a case study in success, and we've had a lot of case studies that I've been at the helm for that just haven't worked out. So like we've really analyzed what we think has been kind of what were the key ingredients here, and I think you kind of nailed it. The like communities can rally behind a clear objective. So right from the very beginning, we were like, we need to accomplish this. Clear consequences if you don't hit your objective. Nicole's consequences were like, she would either get a job or she wouldn't get a job. So it was very clearly defined. And then, it really helps to have a villain and an underdog. I mean, that's certainly in any movie script or any TV series, having those two things as part of the storyline are important. Beyond that, like we were able to really make the community feel like they were a part of the success and they were. I mean, they genuinely were a part of the success of everything. And that just led to a level of engagement on our content that you just wouldn't see, when it's sort of a creator who's coming up with things outside of the community's input. So I think like involving the community in the creative process, I think really, really helped do that. I mean, we tried like all of the traditional marketing tactics of like running contests that kind of failed. We were doing things like, tag two friends and just stuff like that. And really at the end of the day, like, it was the belief in Nicole and the belief in the mission and the belief in the objective that I think is really what sustained everything and really what sent us to that next level. It was the story. It wasn't really any of the like hacks or tactics that we were kind of using as we went.
One thing, I mean, we're talking about Nicole and how she was like the creator behind and in the story. How do you recommend brands go find someone like Nicole? Because I think that she obviously had very great camera appeal. She
totally
did the story. So how do you go find talent like that?
It's a really good question. So I'm a firm believer in like modern social teams right now should have for all brands should have a creator whose sole focus is on creating content, and it's someone who has in the case of Nicole, like a demonstrable background in creating content themselves. Finding these people is not putting a job description out on Indeed and like hoping you can find someone who's like willing to come and create content because they like, your beef jerky brand. It's going into the bowels of Instagram and finding people who are sort of maybe under discovered, young, hungry, who you think have what it takes to represent your brand and have that camera appeal, have that charisma, have that creativity, like demonstrated through their own content. Because, it's, you can't have a person who's like not a content creator in that role. You can't have someone who's like kind of understands social media and therefore will be the content creator, the face of the brand. It needs to be someone who's a creator, and it's a different thing. And then with that person, you need someone who can sort of oversee strategy and be communicating the effectiveness of that strategy to the team. And like they can be sort of, in the weeds with analytics, and then the creator is solely focused on creating content. So I think it's like, these modern social media teams are really sort of twofold now. You've got a creator who's really a creator and not sort of focused on the higher level things. And then you've got someone who's focused on the higher level things, working with them to help come up with the plan. But yeah, I mean, there's no better way to find a good creator than looking through Instagram and seeing who's doing it well.
I love that advice, because for the market Millennials, we brought on a creator, and the way I found him was I saw a TikTok of him talking. He was still in college, talking about LinkedIn content, how he's posting on LinkedIn and what's he doing on LinkedIn. And he was getting a lot of views. And I was like, this guy definitely gets it. He might not get marketing all the way, but he definitely gets social. So
totally,
I think
totally.
That's the best advice, is be active on these platforms, because you'll find so many gems if you active. Also be active because you figure out creative ideas, like you did with, that monkey marketing versus people have unsuccessfully done the boss villain arc, and it hasn't worked, but you took multiple ideas, connected together to make an original idea for this.
Yeah, I mean, you can't win on social unless you're living on social. You got to understand what's working. You gotta speak the language. You gotta you gotta live and breathe it a little bit in order to win on it. But man, there's such an opportunity right now with organic. It's really a special time. It's pretty cool.
One thing I want you to walk me through a little bit is, so obviously Mixoloshe, I said it wrong at the beginning. You rebranded it to Smash. How was running this campaign coinciding with coming up with rebranding strategy? How did you do both at the same time, and how did you plan, we're going to launch this right here at this time?
Yeah, a lot of people are like, oh no, they had this all planned all along. Like the truth is, like, we were building the plan as we flew it. So once we had that first video go viral, we had a short list of names that we thought, because really the idea here was like, we want to get the community behind this rebrand. Like we want the community to be the one who is in charge of this, to own this rebrand. And so we came up with, as soon as that first video went viral, we came up with a short list of names that could work, that we thought the community might land on if we were to just poll them. We couldn't just poll them. Unfortunately, we have to make sure it's trademarkable, and we have to make sure it's defendable. Like there's a lot of other legal things that need to go into it. So we came up with a short list of what we thought they would land on. SMASHD was one. There was like a Smash without the A, like removing the alcohol because it's a non-alcoholic cocktail company. We had some trademark issues with that. So there were a couple, and then we landed on SMASHD. We trademarked it basically like by that second week of the campaign. And then we sort of crafted the story arc of like arriving at a place where SMASHD would become the name. So it was very delicate. Like when I say like we were building the plan as we flew it, like, I mean, every single day we were making decisions on the fly based on like the temperature of the community and the comment section, the feedback we were hearing from people. So we kind of knew the name. We knew a rebrand needed to happen. We knew we needed to like really bolster this secondary storyline of like what's happening between the boss and Nicole. And we were kind of doing all of that on the fly. So it wasn't perfectly planned to a T, but it worked out perfectly. And, you know, we were going to still rebrand if we didn't hit 500,000 followers. We were going to end up just saying, you know what, it's happening anyway. Fortunately, it just worked out so well that, you know, we hit the 500,000 and we had the traction we did. And we got lucky. Like I will say, we didn't expect, we hit 500,000 followers like 45 days or something into the campaign. It was like 40 days into the campaign, very, very quickly. And we had still 20 days remaining. And I was like, man, I did not expect to have this problem. Like I thought we were going to be sliding into the end of this campaign with like, you know, just begging people to come over and follow. And so we got lucky because timing wise, we were in Vegas right around the time we hit that 500,000. So we could get the content to celebrate that milestone. And then we had the shoot planned for the final video. It was really just saying like, look, this is our opportunity. We need to be all in, completely invested in the outcome here. And like everything else needs to kind of take a pause while we ride this thing out to its, you know, conclusion. And we just need to be giving it all our focus and making decisions every single day. And that's kind of how the team operated.
Well, it's also cool because you had the problem that it was a men liked the product but didn't want to carry it. The word smashed is like a play on being smashed with alcohol. You did a campaign that was smashing cans, but it's still a play on that word of being smashed.
Totally.
So it all like connected back to what the product was. You didn't just do something random. Everything was connecting back to this word that really meant something that is in normal day speak, that, and men also say that all the time and women say that. So it's a word that everybody uses.
Yeah. And also like for us, like but even before we did this, like we spoke internally about like, we want to smash the stigma that not drinking is not fun. Like we literally, like our brand, like we want to stand for fun without alcohol. Like we want to push like content and create a community and help push this narrative that like believes in a world that can be fun without alcohol. And I think that's the stigma that we're trying to smash, that you need alcohol to have a good time, that you need alcohol to have fun. So it was part of our like lexicon before we even did this, which was kind of cool too.
I think one of the underrated metrics that you said, besides that you got 500K followers, besides that you got all these impressions, was the email subscribers that you got from it. 70K is a lot. And also how you strategically were doing pop-ups that connected well with that campaign. So you knew that traffic was hitting that. So could you explain how you did this full funnel? It wasn't just, hey, I'm going to do this as social campaign, as it was full funnel all the way to the website.
Yeah. So early on, as we started to see an increase of traffic, we basically created this narrative between Nicole and her boss where the boss was skeptical that the traffic was coming from the campaign, which was intentional to like rally up the people to say, you know what, no way, like tell your boss, you know, it's definitely coming from us. Simultaneously, we put up a pop-up on the website that basically said, here for Nicole the intern. She claims all this traffic is coming from her can smashing. If you're here, enter your email below. And people loved it. I mean, the conversion on that pop-up was like nothing I've ever seen in my, 20 years professional career. Like it was unbelievable. And we would have people sign up for that. And then like the postscript was like, once they entered their email, it was like, thanks. But she's still a long way. There's no way she'll ever hit 500,000 followers. Like fun banter, like super lighthearted banter, which I think people appreciated, simultaneously, like that email list, we were sending emails with updates on the campaign throughout the campaign, with specific asks, with specific promotions that we were running. Like, we knew that like this campaign would be a moment, and then we would need to be doing something else afterwards. Like it wasn't going to sustain itself forever. So we we really tried to use it to move as much of the Mixoloshe inventory as we could, which we were successful in doing. I mean, we really pretty much moved all of it with the exception of the retail product, which we're working on now. So yeah, it was really, it was really kind of simple in the end. Like, it was a simple pop-up, an email strategy that was like, that sort of paralleled the social strategy. And and we were, one of the things I will say, like, everyone was like, well, why didn't you guys do this on TikTok and YouTube Shorts? And, we're a relatively small team. And I am like, especially for startups with limited resources, I am very bullish on finding an acquisition channel that works and doing a really good job on that one acquisition channel and not trying to be everywhere all the time in the name of just because you think you have to. If we had tried to also manage a TikTok and a YouTube Shorts version of this, we would have not been as high touch in the comment section. We would have not been in tune to what was happening, in the DMs. I don't think we would have been as successful, quite honestly, because it really does require a level of focus. And like, yeah, once you've come up with an acquisition channel, eventually it'll plateau and you can sort of go on to something else. But when things are working really well, like, just continue to like make sure they're working really well. Don't necessarily try and spread yourself too thin, because that's when, I think results will suffer.
Yeah, and every channel is a different language you need to speak.
Totally.
So that's a lesson for every marketer out there, because so many people with social teams right now, even small, big, try to, let's just hit this mark on a calendar that we get this post out on this channel, instead of,
Right.
hey, let's become the best at IG and let's see if we can do that first, and then move on to TikTok if we want to move on to TikTok and YouTube.
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
I want to ask you, what are some, if you were going to give lessons to marketers who are starting a campaign or doing or leveraging social right now, what are some lessons that you would instill to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that has worked very well for me, be it with SMASHD or any of the other companies that I've either started or been a part of, is, especially in the early days, like, have a really adaptive mindset to the way you approach campaigns on social. Like, I think historically, like, traditionally, it's like, come up with an idea for a campaign and then commit to seeing that campaign through. Whereas, like, I'm very bullish on like rapid iteration and testing of ideas really quickly, and trying to get signal on whether or not these ideas are good. And it's impossible to like sit in a room with a bunch of people and, you can think it's a really good idea. And unfortunately, the way these algorithms work, like, some of the best ideas I think I've ever had have just never worked. And some of the worst ideas I've ever had have gone really well. So, like, smashing a can in your backyard, like, so dumb, right? The only way is if you get this content out in front of consumers and in front of people, and then from there you can really start to craft a broader strategy. So, I think like having a very sort of entrepreneurial test and learn mindset, as it relates to coming up with campaigns on social in particular, is treat it like you would treat a startup idea. Go out, create a separate account that's completely separate from the brand account, and go test the content and see how it performs. Give it a couple days, and if you get some traction on it, that the idea is good. You can come up with a more comprehensive strategy. The other thing too is, like, everyone thinks they need to do stuff through the main brand page. You don't. You're really not restricted. You can create as many accounts as you want on every platform with different themes and different ideas. The best content really isn't about the brand. It's about the product. It's about the message of the brand and what you're trying to convey. So, doing it outside of the brand page in some cases is actually a much better approach.
I think that's a great tip as well for people. I think people so want to just make their brand page work, and sometimes a lot of people just don't want to follow brand pages. It's just a natural thing unless they already have a brand. I mean, the
Totally.
only brands I for example, my wife, she'll only follow brand accounts if she shops the product, or she sees an influencer talking about it, or an influencer or her friends are following that brand. Otherwise, she won't follow that brand. So
Totally.
then they all
Yeah.
have established brands already, or they have existing followers. So you can't rely on that.
I mean, brand pages historically are pretty boring, and they're very rarely engaged in any sort of storytelling. They're very rarely engaged in anything that's like establishing a meaningful connection other than just like content that's like giving a vibe of what you're supposed to feel when you use a product. The most savvy marketers right now are realizing that like people connect with people and not with products, and you got to find that person who's going to be the face, or those people that are going to be the face of your brand, and really, engage in some meaningful storytelling.
One question I have too is, so this campaign is over, you've rebranded to SMASHD. What's the next step with the account, and what are you thinking for the
Yeah.
future marketing?
It's a great question. I mean, we had a lot of ideas. We intended actually right off the bat to ride this into a national presidential campaign spoof, and we actually pulled the plug on it recently, just because of the political environment being what it is. It just wasn't feeling right. This is again back to the adaptive marketing, fail fast sort of mentality. We launched this thing. We got a sense pretty early on that it wasn't going to materialize, and then the events of the last couple of weeks have changed. So the plan for the best marketing strategy ever page, or that community, is like, we're really going to sort of take on this build in public approach with that page, with Nicole as the face, and Nicole is going to be taking the community on very transparently along the journey of building this brand and the challenges we have. I mean, right now, one of the challenges is we have received a notification from our retail partners that we actually have to sell out of all of the old Mixoloshe product in order to get the SMASHD product on shelves. And so because of that, Nicole has decided to do a nationwide campaign, visiting as many of these stores as she possibly can, getting the community to come out and help accomplish this goal. The best marketing strategy ever page will continue to be Nicole's journey of helping us build SMASHD. And what's cool about that community is, like, they are the founders of this brand, quite honestly. I mean, this brand wouldn't be what it is without them. And there is a real sense of ownership amongst those community members. They really do feel like a sense of ownership behind the brand.
The question I like to ask everybody in this podcast is, what's a marketing hill you would die on?
I think it would probably honestly change depending on the time of year and what's happening. Right now, the marketing hill I will die on is that organic social is hands down the most powerful tool that we all have at our fingertips to market our brands and our products. That is really being underutilized by 95% of the brands out there. With the changes to the privacy policies on all these social platforms, paid is not what it used to be. It used to be very simple. Like, you could look at the data and analyze it. If you put in $5, it's going to spit out 12. Nowadays, it's not as simple as that. However, these platforms have really changed their algorithms to make it far more friendly for creators and consumers to get incredible reach. So I think, organic marketing right now is incredibly powerful, and it's going to be where we focus a lot of our efforts here moving forward.
I lied. I have one more question. The question I have is, I mean, you said Zayn is a co-founder of this, and then also Gary Vee was a part of it. It's cool that, and I know a lot of celebrity brands tried to be successful just on the back of a celebrity. But you used a total different face, which is cool to see that. Like Zayn, you can't, when you, even with like a celebrity brand that is co-founded by someone, it's hard. You can't just rely on that celebrity. So how do you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, Zayn is an investor. He's believed in the product from the beginning, and it sort of represents, a lot of things that he stands for. Having said that, Zayn, it's traditionally like celebrity-backed brands, like, unless there's a very clear connection to their lifestyle, their, the way they lead their life, or something that they're super passionate about, and it's out in the open prior to the partnership. In general, they don't really do as well as people think. I don't think people necessarily care as much as they used to, like what celebrities have to say. I think they're like interested in kind of what celebrities do and their talents, but I don't think they really feel super motivated to buy something because a celebrity bought something. People want like authentic, fun storytelling, and they connect with people. And, in order to deliver that, like you need you need someone who can sort of be showing up every single day and being the face of the brand. And that's why, we chose to go a different route. And I will say the Gary thing was very organic as well. We had no connection to Gary at all before the campaign started. His team found us very early on when we first started going viral. And this is in the name of like Gary. Gary's definitely, he's walking the walk, because he's got his team in the weeds on Instagram, on social every single day, like learning what other people are doing. They found us when we had a couple hundred followers and reached out right away and said, like, love what you guys are doing. Like, let us know if we can be helpful. And we started to harass them to get Gary to smash a can. We were like, all right, yeah, you can be helpful. Like, have Gary smash a can with us. And it wasn't until we had almost like 400,000 followers that they agreed to do that. And we connected and Gary came out. So, and it worked really well, because what we were doing really is what Gary stands for, which is leveraging organic to get people's attention. So people hope that they hope that there's sort of a silver bullet, a shiny object that can come and solve all their marketing problems. But the truth is, like, you got to roll up your sleeves, and you've got to have a team that can also roll up their sleeves. And typically celebrities don't have the time to be able to commit.
I mean, that's an experience that I've seen with a lot of, my wife's in e-commerce and has worked with and seen a lot of celebrity brands, and you just can't rely on the celebrity. And it's not because they don't believe in the brand. It's just, like you said, the time and all the other things they have going on. Their
schedules are crazy, and we can schedule a photo shoot 3 months out, but like you can't build a brand like off of a photo shoot that you have to schedule 3 months out. Like you've got to be in the weeds every day and getting the message out. So I think that's kind of the challenge.
Lastly, where could people find Smashed and we kind of mentioned the podcast, but what are you all building in?
So SMASHD is a non-alcoholic cocktail company. Our kind of core value prop is that we taste like the real thing. Like, we wanted to really elevate the non-alcoholic experience in the cocktail space, in the mocktail space. So when you have a sip of our old fashioned, Daniel, we'll send you some. Like, you'll do a double take. You'll be like, oh my God, that's got the bite. It's got the heat. It tastes like an old fashioned. And there's been some brands like Athletic Brewing who have done a really good job in the non-alcoholic beer space. No one's really cracked the code in the non-alcoholic cocktail space. And a lot of folks have been sort of testing into the functional drinks, and but no one's really made a great non-alcoholic cocktail until us. And we're the most awarded non-alcoholic ready-to-drink cocktail there is out there. Smashed currently is only available via our e-commerce site. So smashed.com, smashed with no e.com. We will soon be available in Sprouts, Walmart, and Bevmo. Currently, our old brand, Mixoloshe, which is the same product, is available in those stores as well. So if you want to go and taste the product without the smashed can, you can go buy it in Sprouts, Walmart, or Bevmo. So eventually, the plan really is beverage is very expensive to ship, so it's not going to be a direct-to-consumer focused business. But it's a lot easier to rebrand and start selling out the product on your own Shopify site than it is to, get it on shelves really quickly.
Yeah. And then everybody who's listening, go help Nicole, go sell out those ones in store so she can, Smash could be everywhere, not Mixoloshe. Like
totally,
I said at the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah, go follow the best marketing strategy ever on Instagram, and you can follow along with Nicole's journey and get a sense of what we're about.
Well, thank you so much for joining and sharing the details of this campaign. It's been really interesting and cool to hear about it.
Yeah, Daniel, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for having me.